Okay, ladies and gents, welcome aboard. My name's Andy Cope, well, Dr. Andy Cope, and the T-shirt gives you a clue. So what I've been doing, and I am a Loughborough uni, okay, so I appreciate the fact I'm not Aston. What I've been doing for about 20 years now is researching a subject called positive psychology, which is essentially the science of happiness and the science of well-being and the science of feeling good. And yes, I have done that thing where put some books behind me to make myself look cleverer than I am. It took me 12 years to get a PhD, all right, so I'm not a naturally gifted and talented academic, but I work really, really hard. So the happiness survival plan comes out, if there's 5 things that you really need to know about happiness, that if I was going to leave the house with these things in my head, then this would be it. Now, also really important before we go any further is I also write kids' books. So I write personal development stuff. I've got a PhD, but I also have got a mental age of about 7.5. And I think, I'm just going to pop this on because I think it's really important that you understand that. Now, I know that you care, and I know that all the other trainers that are delivering on these courses, they care as well. But I think the unique perspective I have is I've got the academic background, I've got the mental age of a 7-year-old, and I really, really care. I care about my subject with a passion. I care about well-being. I care about you. I probably don't know you, but I really, really care. And I want you to have an epic life. So give us 10 minutes of your life. Let's see how far we can get. Okay, put all those ingredients together. Hopefully we've got something really inspiring in the next few minutes. Now, another picture I just want to share with you, because I'm very aware that the world is very tough, and working in HE, here's not quite enough money to run your department. Here's some extra targets about new students we need to recruit. And here's difficult times where COVID's hit us and we're not sure, where the foreign students are coming with the extra income. So what you'll find is if you've been in HE for 10 years or more, that path seems to be getting narrower. Now, the truth is, and there's no laughs in this, that a lot of people are having a wobble. Right, so there's a lot of people who are falling into the sort of canal there. And if I was to tell you that in England, just in England alone last year, there were 75 million prescriptions written for antidepressants. Right, that's more prescriptions than there are people. And that was before COVID, right? So I don't know what next year is going to be, but so there's no laughs in that. Now, what I can't do and what you can't do, I can't change the world. So I can't make politics go away, and I can't make the sunshine, and I can't make the traffic go away. But what I can do, and what positive psychology teaches me, is that what I can do is the only thing I can do is I can take control of me. So by upgrading me and being a slightly more positive, upbeat, confident, optimistic version of myself, then what that means is I can navigate that path without having the wobble. And that's really where I'm coming from. So 5 top tips. So let's go with the most obvious thing, right? 12 years for a PhD. I feel really guilty because I know some academics listening to this, we're rolling their eyes. If I was to tell you the biggest single thing that comes out of my research of seeking out happy people and following them around and working out why they're so happy, that's essentially what I did at Loughborough. And the biggest single thing that comes out of that is a conscious and deliberate choice to have a positive attitude. Yeah, I know the academics are rolling their eyes at this point. They're, what, is that it? 12 years to find out that? Did we not already know that? Maybe is the question rattling around in your head. I'm not sure that we did. I'm not sure that I did. Now, it doesn't say choose to be happy. So it's really nuanced academic point here, but you can't choose happiness. So happiness is an emotion. You can open up to happiness and let more in, but you can't choose to be happy. But positivity is not an emotion, it's an attitude, and therefore positivity is something that you can work on. And by some margin, that's the single biggest thing that comes out of my research is really happy people have chosen to have a positive attitude. Now, just because you choose to be positive doesn't mean the sun's going to shine, and it doesn't mean that the traffic jams are going to go away. The choice to be positive doesn't change anything in the big wide world out there. It changes you in here, puts you in a better place to deal with the traffic and the current situation. It doesn't change that, it changes you. It's a bigger point. It's a much bigger point than it looks when I just tell you. So the question that falls out of that is, well, how positive have I got to be and for how long? So the magic number in positive psychology is, and it's one of these things as an academic, it's been proved and disproved so many times. Forget the academia, it just works, right? The magic number is 2.9013. A weird number. It's called the Lasada line. If you Google it. Now, the Lasada line is basically a ratio of 3 to 1. So 3 to 1 it's about communication. You should be 3 times more positive than you are negative. So in your everyday conversation, it's not 3 to 0, so you can be negative, but every time you say something negative, you should balance that with 3 positives. That's how positive you need to be. And that's the sort of the minimum really for a relationship to gain any traction. So every time you have a grumble or a moan or a negative or a gossipy, then what you should do is balance that with 3 positives. And that's, by the way, if your relationship at home dips the other way, if I was in your kitchen at home and I could hear 3 negatives for every positive, then that relationship is going to really, really struggle. So think about what you say, listen back to yourself just for a while, and you should be saying 3 things more positive than you are negative. But that's the minimum. And we're not looking at Aston to be the minimum. We're looking to be world class. So if you look at world class teams in the workplace, if you listen to them, in fact, then their ratio is 6 to 1. So if I was in your team or in your meetings or in your lectures and I could hear 6 bits of positive, 6 bits of banter, 6 bits of praise, 6 bits of encouragement, 6 catching your colleagues or your students doing something well and telling them, now, I'd be fairly sure that you and your department and your team are buzzing, because 6 to 1 is the magic ratio of high performance. Now, a little bit off-piste here, and if you don't kind of Google the academia too closely, but just trust me, it works. For your own kids, if you've got kids at home, then the ratio is more like 8 to 1. And that's a really, really difficult thing to get right, because kids don't want bull, do they? They don't want bigging up for no reason. But you as a parent, if your child does something just good, just notice it. So if they're doing the homework without being asked, for example, don't big it up. Just walk past them and say, do you know what? You're doing your homework. I've not even asked you and you're doing your homework. Thanks for making my day. That's it. Leave it. That's one of your 8. So choosing to be positive is a really big deal. How positive have I got to be? 3 times more positive than you are negative, or 6 in the workplace, 8 at home. Second question then is, for how long have I got to be positive? And my colleague Daryl has delivered some sessions at Aston. We're hoping to do some more live sessions that focus on what we call the 4-minute rule. And the 4-minute rule basically says that you as a human being, you are contagious. So human beings are built to catch emotions from the people around you. We're emotional creatures. And if you can be positive and upbeat and genuinely, authentically positive and upbeat for 4 minutes, then other people around you will have almost no choice but to catch how you feel. So you haven't got to be happy and positive all day. If that's too much of a challenge, you've only got to do it for 4 minutes. So I'm trying to be funny, but it's the least funny point, right? Because I mean, the first 4 minutes of coming home from work, coming home positive, upbeat, vibrant, alive. The first 4 minutes of coming into work in the morning in the office, coming in with a genuine enthusiasm and a smile on your face. Now, don't overdo it. There's an old English word, grinagog, right? A grinagog is from the 18th century. A grinagog is somebody who's so happy you want to punch them on the nose. I'm not asking you to go that far. If you go that far, that's too happy. What I'm talking about is being that genuine, authentically positive version of you just for 4 minutes. That's all you've got to do to raise. People will have almost no choice but to feel good when you're around. Okay, so my next point is around gratitude. Once again, I know that this has been covered in previous videos, but I just want to highlight it as gratitude is like fertilizer for happiness. Okay, so it's like the bedrock. If you can just come from a point of your life whereby living with gratitude, then everything changes. I promise you, everything changes. So if you get a pen and paper and write down 20 things that you really appreciate but take for granted, then so 20 things that you've got in your life that you're lucky to have but you're taking your eye off, then I can second guess what will be on your list already. Right, so health and relationships with other people will be on the top of the list, and then you'll get stuck for a little while, and then slightly weird things will pop up on your list, like the NHS and Cornish pasties and hot water bottles and having a roof over your head and Toblerone, running water, sit-down toilets. The truth is that most people spend a massive amount of their time moaning about what they haven't got, whereas what you find is really happy, upbeat people are very much more grateful for what they already have got. So top tip there, gratitude is fertilizer for happiness. Now, can I give you a weird one? It's one that works with kids, but I think if I was going to leave the house with this, I would leave it with a top tip. And it's a weird question. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. What hasn't happened that you didn't want that you haven't celebrated? I told you it was weird. You can ask yourself 10 times and you won't get it. What hasn't happened that you didn't want that you haven't celebrated? So let me give you an example, all right? Because it does mess with your mind. Let me give you an example. I woke up this morning and opened my curtains and there wasn't a zombie apocalypse outside. Right, now, I didn't want there to be any zombies, and there weren't any zombies, but I didn't punch the air and announce to my wife, hey, guess what, Lou? No zombies again, woohoo! Because not only would she have thought that was weird, but it's quite difficult for your brain to celebrate something that hasn't happened. Okay. Now, just hang in there, right? Because kids get this better than adults do. So the first time I ever asked that question, by the way, was at the Jersey Book Festival. So I write kids' books as well. So I got invited to Jersey. I'm in the Opera House at Jersey, and I've got 650 kids aged between about 6 and 9. It is an audience to die for, honestly, great. And I asked these kids that question, what hasn't happened that you didn't want, you haven't celebrated? Of course, with them, 650 hands go up like that. Pick me, pick me. So the microphone made its way to a little boy, probably about 6.5 years old. So I said to him, what hasn't happened that you didn't want, that you haven't celebrated? And he said, I haven't been murdered in cold blood by a ventriloquist dummy wearing a clown costume. Okay, so I said, oh, God, that's interesting. I said, did you want to be murdered? Of course I didn't want to be murdered, he said, especially not by a ventriloquist dummy, because they're particularly scary. He says, but what I've learned in your session, Andy, is I'm going to celebrate that every single day. So as far as I'm concerned, that is a good start today. He's going to come down for breakfast going, guess what, Mum? Woohoo! I've not had my throat slit by a demonic dummy. Now, I know it's weird. Yeah, I get that it's weird. But your brain works in exactly the opposite way. So your brain has got a negativity bias built into it. So what that means is your brain is really, really good at spotting problems and dangers. It's like a problem spotting machine, honed in. That's why one awkward student ruins your entire day. One bad driver ruins your entire commute. Your brain deletes the 500 good drivers. It doesn't take any notice. It takes notice of the one bad one. So by focusing on the bad stuff that hasn't happened, begins to rewire your thinking. I promise you, it begins to rewire your thinking and you get a little bit of a boost. By the way, same audience at Jersey, a little girl next to the little boy. What hasn't happened that you didn't want, you haven't celebrated? She said, I went to the toilet this morning and there wasn't a crocodile in it. That's genius, right? That is genius. So rewire your thinking to all the bad stuff that hasn't happened, that you didn't want it to happen, and actually begin to celebrate it. That's an interesting top tip. So I'm going to leave you with a story that brings it all together for me. It brings it all together, and it's a true story. It appears in one of my books, but to be fair, I did steal the story from a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul, which is this kind of quite a sickly American thing. So I sort of Britished it up a bit. And it's a true story about a guy called Seb. And Seb works on a toll bridge in America. So you just hang in there, last minute, right? So Seb works on a toll bridge in America. And for ease of understanding, let's assume there's 10 lanes of traffic on the bridge, and every lane of traffic has a booth with a person who sits there. And so 10 people are working the bridge, and what you do is you sit there for 8 hours and the cars pull up, you take the $2, you press the button, the barrier opens, the car goes through, barrier down, next customer. So you've got 10 people lined up on the bridge taking the money in rush hour. And in lanes 1 to 9, you've got the same people with the same mentality going through the motions. They're sitting there wishing they'd worked harder at school. It's a bit of a dead-end job on the toll bridge, waiting to 5 o'clock when they can log off and go home. All going through the same motions except lane 10, where you've got Seb. And Seb is different from everybody else. He's got the same space, he's on the same pay, he's doing the same job. He's the only one who doesn't bring a chair. So he's standing up all day for his shift. He brings a CD player, he plugs it in and he whacks it up quite loud. And I promise you, every single day, for 8 hours every day, Seb has a party. On his own, but he's dancing and he's singing and he's smiling. And he gets to know his customer. So when a customer pulls up, he's like, hi, Marianne. Oh my gosh, your hair looks lovely. Have you had it done differently today? He says, I hope you enjoy your trip across the bridge. Enjoy your day. Say hi to the kids. I'll see you tomorrow. If Seb gets a new customer in lane 10, he can hardly control his excitement. Welcome to lane 10, sir. What a fantastic choice. He says, because do you know why? Because we're the same price as lanes 1 to 9. He says, but because we're on the end, we've got a better view. So he says, what I advise first timers, sir, is to drive quite slowly across lane 10. Drive quite slowly across the bridge. Look, there's a river underneath. The leaves are turning a different colour in the autumn. And he says, sir, Enjoy your trip across the bridge, and if you're in the neighbourhood again, I'd be delighted to see you in lane 10 next time. Have a lovely day. And here's the rub of the whole thing. Here's the rub of the whole happiness, science of positive psychology thing, is I'm reliably informed, is that after the rush hour's finished, so there's hardly any traffic on that bridge. So you've got in lanes 1 to 9, you've got these people who are sitting there strumming their fingers on their desk, waiting for the clock to tick by to 5 o'clock so they can go home. Seb in lane 10 gets his regulars. So he gets people who would rather queue for 5 minutes in lane 10. They could easily, lanes 1 to 9 are empty, they could easily go straight through, but they would choose to queue for 5 minutes in lane 10 to interact with Seb. And if you can work out why that is, then this video will have been worthwhile. Because Seb is having a positive impact, not just on his own life, but he's having a positive impact on the people around him. So there's some top tips that I shouldn't leave home without them. And I'll leave you with the quote that Seb's doing: dance with life and you'll soon get everyone else dancing. Thanks for listening.